supply of coltan, a metallic ore crucial to the production of smartphones and other electronic devices. The M23 rebels have reportedly controlled the area since mid-2024 and charge a tax of 15% on the value of that coltan production. The Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan has arrived in Turkey on the first official visit there by an Armenian leader. The two neighbors have disagreements dating back generations. Armenia insists more than 1 million of its people were killed during and after the First World War by troops from what was the Ottoman Empire. The BBC's Hilkin Boran has the details.
An Armenian foreign ministry official said the leaders would discuss efforts to sign a comprehensive peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, as well as the regional fallout from the Iran-Israel conflict. Turkey officially recognized Armenia's independence in 1991, but their border has been closed since 1993 following the First Nagorno-Karabakh War. Nikol Pashinyan has been trying to normalize ties with both Azerbaijan and Turkey after Armenia's defeat in the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War. Direct flights have resumed between Turkey and Armenia in recent years after rounds of normalization talks.
A Tunisian court has sentenced Sabi Atig, a senior official in Ennahda, the country's main opposition party, to 15 years in prison on charges of money laundering. This is the latest move against opposition figures under President Kais Saied. Atig was detained in 2023. He is one of many opponents of Saied who have been imprisoned since the president began expanding his powers in 2021, dissolving parliament and ruling by decree. Saied has said that all his steps are legal. Atig has denied the charges against him, saying they were fabricated. And now recapping the top story, the Sawa, the family of the late former Zambian President Edgar Lungu, has announced that he will be buried in South Africa. This after a feud between the family and the Zambian government. The two sides have not been able to reach an agreement on how to send off the former leader. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo-Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In a sports headline, financial troubles threaten the Black Queens of Ghana's WAFCON 2024 campaign. And former Super Eagles captain John Obi Mikel reveals how he was forced to pay for flights for Nigeria's team from his pocket. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
It is a very good afternoon to you, Kenya. Good afternoon, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Eritrea. Good afternoon to you, Ethiopia, Somalia, Zimbabwe. Good afternoon to you, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Tami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport and business. We are broadcasting live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. On the agenda this afternoon, we focus on the National African Federation for the Building Industry following their two-day conference focusing on extending global networks and jobs creation. A look as well at the US-Africa Summit. Angola is set to host this US-Africa Business Summit from the 22nd to the 25th of June. And also the tail end of the 2025 Commonwealth Business Summit. This taking place in Windhoek. We'll be speaking this afternoon to what it's going to take to turn these ideas, these concepts into actionable steps that will progress the future of business within the Commonwealth. And as usual, every single Friday, our weekly business roundup with Victor Khumuswano as we focus on Total Energies and progressing relationships between Russia and the African continent. We'll be focusing on their relations with both Mali and Burkina Faso. That and a whole lot more coming up on Africa in Business this afternoon. Welcome to it.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Tamin Gubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
We kick off this afternoon with the US-Africa Summit, which is due to be hosted by Angola. It is the US-Africa Business Summit from the 22nd to the 25th of June. The summit will focus on priority sectors such as infrastructure, energy and sustainable finance, among other things. Since its inception, the US-Africa Business Summit has served as a vital platform for advancing US-Africa commercial partnerships, facilitating multi-million-dollar deals and introducing innovative financing instruments supporting US ventures in African markets. For more on this, we joined this afternoon by political analyst Jose Gama. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us. Are you with us, Jose?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. I hear you loud and well as well. Let's start off with a look at Angola. They are going to be chairing the African Union and hosting high-level leaders. How might the summit reshape the US-Africa diplomatic relations and the regional influence given Angola's current standing with the AU?
Yeah, that's the first time Angola is holding this kind of summit, in partnership with the CCA, Corporate Council on Africa. And so they're going to have the theme, the theme's going to be a pathway to prosperity. And this summit aims, as you said, to deepen commercial ties and unlock investment in priority sectors such as energy, infrastructure, health, with support from the key U.S. agencies, including the DFC and X-Bank. And the event provides a platform for building long-term sustainable partnerships. And actually, they're going to be in Angola a top-level U.S. government delegation that will attend alongside head of states from several African countries. It's confirmed like African leaders, including the one from DRC, Felix Tshisekedi, Kgalema from Zambia, and others from Botswana, Ghana, Equatorial Guinea, Tanzania, and in Mozambique. Actually, that's as you can see, it's gonna be a challenge for Angola. Because as you can see, in recent years, over 62 billion U.S. African deals have been announced, and trade between the U.S. and sub-Saharan Africa reached $44 billion U.S., with significant volume coming from SADC countries, especially South Africa, over $10 billion. And that.
Jose, it sounds like we have lost you. Are you still with us? All right, our conversation there just temporarily paused with Jose Gama as we try and get him back on a different line. We seem to have lost that connection there. But very interesting. I mean, I'd like to ask him this. This is the first time, really, that the US-Africa Business Summit is going to be held under this new administration, under Donald Trump. And there have been a lot of geopolitical shifts as far as Trump is concerned, not only pertaining to Africa, but really as far as trade with America is concerned. And I wonder what policy shifts or trade priorities we can be anticipating from the American side, given this particular backdrop. So that was political analyst Jose Gama on the backdrop of the US-Africa Business Summit that's set to take place in Angola from the 22nd to the 25th of June. Angola chairing touring the African Union and hosting various high-level leaders. Jose, I believe we do have you back on the line. And I was just saying to our listeners that I'm really quite keen to find out what your perspectives are as far as the policy shifts that can be expected from the American side and what America's trade priorities would be right now, given the fact that this US-Africa summit is taking place under a new US administration. We're talking Trump, we're talking tariffs, we're talking a very different trading environment here with the United States.
Yes, now the United States, of course, that's going to be the first event under Trump administration, and definitely it will continue. It will continue the what actually Biden did. So Angola, especially Angola and United States, were busy discussing about the corridors of Lobito and how this would contribute for African development and for Africa. And I mean, for Africa, especially countries like Angola, DRC, and Zambia. And that's a policy, that's American policy, and no matter what administration will be under. And in one of the points of this summit is also the corridor of Lobito. U.S. investment. That's one of U.S. investments in strategic in Africa. And they also there's also goal for economic dialogue between African head of state and U.S. Government and private sector leader. And you know that Trump is the kind of leader that is very distant to Africa. And with this event, there will be an opportunity for regional integration and diversification of African economy in terms of discussion between the two parts.
And I guess we'll have to see how that unfolds and if there will be a solid way forward as far as US-Africa relations are concerned on the trade front. Jose Gama, thank you once again for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a political analyst there, Jose Gama, on the backdrop of the US-Africa Business Summit taking place in Angola from the 22nd to the 25th of June. It's gone 14 minutes after 4 p.m.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Tamengubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
Now, this is something we've been focusing on over the past week. We have had various conversations around the Commonwealth Business Summit that is currently taking place in Windhoek. It is the 2025 edition. It is drawing to a close. And so now that we've spoken about this, you'll remember that yesterday we hosted the women's segment of the Commonwealth Business Summit and how corridors of trade and financing instruments can be opened up to women who are trading within the Commonwealth. So our attention now turns to implementation, and not just implementation, but the impact that the Commonwealth Business Summit hopes to make in its various countries. So among those who did take part in these critical conversations was May Siksik, founder of the Canada Innovation Network. Now, Siksik joins us now to discuss the momentum that's been built over the past few days and what exactly needs to happen next in order to turn these ideas into real change across the Commonwealth. A very good afternoon to you, May Siksik. Welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So the Commonwealth Business Summit is now drawing to an end. What would you cherry pick as some of your key takeouts, some of the highlights for you for this business summit?
One of the biggest highlights is the massive opportunities that I was exposed to actually in Namibia. So the Commonwealth is really well positioned to drive a brilliant future of inclusive innovation, inclusive and effective innovation going forward, with such diverse access to talent and many nations where you can prototype a solution in one nation, test it, and then scale it across nations. That is a massive opportunity. But also talking to different ministries and organizations in Namibia, I see massive opportunities here for collaborations to bring real impact to the country.
And as far as your expectations are concerned, were they met? And specifically in regards to issues of women empowerment, women trade, women business.
Yeah, so we talked about the fact that we need to do several things to accelerate that. One of them is to really make providing access to funding to women-led organizations and companies a national priority, and opening government contracts to smaller and more diverse firms, and designing innovation going forward with women needs considered. So we've had fruitful conversations, and hopefully we will see results soon for these important aspects.
And I'm glad you actually said that, because that's exactly what I'm going to ask you next. Great conversation, great dialogue. It all sounds really good. But what are the actionable steps to make sure and to ensure that this isn't just another talk shop? What kind of commitments have been made? What are the action steps that are going to be taking place now that the summit is coming to a close?
So I know exactly what you mean. And I've been impressed with the steps that have been taken. So we've not only had conversations, but we actually are drafting agreements to bring on initiatives into Namibia, initiatives that have to do with upskilling, so that we can actually provide upskill young adults here, and older adults, of course, needed, and give them with access to opportunities worldwide. Bring on healthcare solutions that will really impact the healthcare system, digital infrastructure for mining companies, and other.
Let's personalize this for a moment. And from your perspective as Canada Innovation Network, what are the actionable steps that you're going to be taking forward? You said that you met some really interesting individuals, interesting businesses. What are you going to be moving forward, and what are the opportunities that you've discovered for your own network?
Yeah. So I just want to correct one thing. So I'm CEO of Innovation Network Global, which is headquartered in Canada through Innovation Network Canada. And in fact, it would be great to have a branch in Namibia for Innovation Network Namibia. So I'm tremendously excited about the opportunities that I've seen. I'll give you a bit of context. So my background is AI and quantum computing. I'm an engineer by training, but had a multidisciplinary PhD where I worked in AI and medicine and healthcare. Sorry, AI and quantum computing and healthcare. Oops, sorry about that. We have developed models. So we have we founded Healthcare Without Borders initiative, and it's focused on developing innovative healthcare solutions and bringing them to the global community, especially underserved communities. I thought that I came to Namibia thinking that's what we'd love to bring here. But I came here and realized that there are other opportunities. So I was today talking earlier on with a mining organization, and they talked about a problem really big. I won't talk about that too much, give too many details, but they discussed some really important challenges and thought that, and explained how time consuming it is and so on. And I explained to them that we have actually developed models to deal with exactly those type of problems. So it was just wonderful to learn about these opportunities. So we would love to bring, quantum-based models, AI-based models to solve these problems. And I'm really thrilled to work with Namibian organizations on these problems.
It's really interesting what you say, because you always go into an environment thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to bring. But when you arrive there, as you say, you see what the real, perhaps more pressing, more immediate needs are of that particular environment and community. And it's great that you're able to adapt, and you actually have, the intellectual capital to be able to impact them positively. So you mentioned that maybe there could be an innovation network that you'd like to establish in Canada. I mean, not in Canada, but in Namibia. Is this something that you believe you are going to be able to move ahead with?
I would absolutely love to do this. Things have been moving really fast. Just to give you, I've been only here for a few days, and so much has happened, and that is something that I would absolutely love to pursue here. And one of the things that we always pitch at Innovation Network is responsible development of technologies. Mm-hmm. Often people think responsible development of technologies means taking the bias out of algorithms, making more accountable and transparent and so on. But a really important aspect of responsible development of technologies is actually co-developing these solutions with communities. So we must, what you said about coming here and listening to the problems and the domain expert here, it's fundamental for us. So to work together with Namibian organizations on pain points that they're facing to co-create solutions together. And this is why we want to have an innovation network in Namibia, so we can actually work together on use tools that have been developed, so not reinvent the wheel, but really work with communities here. How do we customize these tools? How do we further develop them so we can create incredible solutions?
So my understanding,
so well.
My understanding, May, is then your solutions are not only restricted to the healthcare sector, but they're across different sectors.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. Congratulations on the work that you've done there, and also really looking forward to seeing what will come out of these collaborations, the type of solutions that can really impact communities at the point of their needs, whatever those needs may be. We thank you very much for your time, and safe travels back to Canada.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, May. That's May Siksik there. She is founder of the Canada Innovation Network. Those are her perspectives and just her takeout from the 2025 Commonwealth Business Summit, which draws to an end in Namibia. It's gone 24 minutes after 4 p.m.
From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 24 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Do continue to interact with us on our various social media platforms. Let us know what your thoughts are. Did you actually go to the Commonwealth Business Summit? Are you in Nigeria? Maybe you would like to comment on what your takeouts were. A very interesting conversation there on how artificial intelligence, and the phrase that May Siksik used was quantum computing. Yes, that's what she does. She does quantum computing, and that's going to be used to try and find some solutions within the mining sector, and this is specifically in Namibia. And these are the type of solutions and collaborations that really come to light when different economies and sectors come together to find common solution, or to find solutions rather to problems that may not be common to all of them, but some others may have just the solution to get them out of that particular predicament. So that was the 2025 Commonwealth Business Summit. Also earlier on today, we took a look at the US Africa Summit, which is going to be taking place in Angola from the 22nd to the 25th of June. And we know Angola chairing the African Union. What is going to come out of that particular summit, particularly regarding all the changes that have been taking place as far as US trade policy is concerned? Let's focus now on the Jubilee Commission. They've called for urgent and systemic reforms to address the spiraling debt and development crises that are devastating countries in the global south. The Vatican-backed commission convened by Pope Francis says only a recognition of this shared responsibility will lead to a sustainable solution. Dimakatsa Leshuru filed this report.
The Jubilee Commission is a panel of experts in debt and development to report on the growing threat to the world's poorest countries. It says only a recognition that this should be a shared responsibility will lead to a sustainable solution. Over 50% of Africa's population live in countries that spend more on debt service than on education or healthcare. Columbia University professor and former Minister of Economy in Argentina, Martin Guzman, says international lenders should provide bailouts without conditions.
We call the international financial institutions, especially the IMF, to implement more effectively the policy toolkit that it has to prevent that the financing that these institutions provide to countries in distress ends up being used for repaying debts in distress to other creditors, especially to the private creditors. We call this the no bailout condition. Of course, this needs to be supplemented by an effective use of the framework for debt sustainability analysis of the IMF and for market access countries, and IMF and World Bank for the low-income countries, because it's critical to identify what are the debt relief needs and what is the sustainability situation of a country, and avoid that when a country faces a problem of debt distress, money from the international financial institutions is used to repay them. That money should be used for economic recovery and for economic development. We emphasize the space for using the special drawing rights more actively and more effectively, including the latest allocation of special drawing rights.
Mahmoud Muhdin, United Nations Special Envoy and former Minister of Investment in Egypt, says the face of lenders to the Global South has changed, with emerging economies now being the owners of capital. He says these debts come with high interest that have kept African economies heavily indebted.
What we have today is a different scene when we see more of emerging markets creditors like China are very much responsible for debt accumulated, and for private sector creditors, including bondholders. So we are guided here by the principles of comparability of treatment, and it's a case-by-case, country-by-country when it comes to the debt, as we have seen in the cases of the countries that went through the common framework of debt management of the G20, like Zambia, or undergoing now Ethiopia and Chad, these kind of restructuring, and Ghana. So we see these countries' needs and to what extent the creditors can really agree on haircuts or debt relief, including the private sector. Then, and to your second part of the question, there are normally provisions for creditor countries that do not normally need for further public spending reprioritization or raising additional taxes. Normally they are provided for such possibilities of default. And with the reference of the case that many of such debt are already with high interest, you will be considering that part of that debt had been already contributing to interest on such debt.
Father Charlie Chilufya, a global justice advocate in Kenya, says African countries are facing a real crisis where debt and debt costs crowd out other crucial spending items.
Nigeria only was able to take 4% of its budget toward health, but it paid much more than that in debt servicing, and that has implications, as we heard from my colleague in the Philippines. And what we are facing in Africa, when you go to hospitals now, we have no medicine. And so the thing of no medicines in the hospitals was a thing of the past, but it is back. And this we see with our own eyes. So that's a crisis creating more crisis. And you know, like for example, in Kenya with insurance coverage that is very, very limited, that for the poor when they fall sick, it means death. To be able to be healthy, you have to have money, because the public hospitals are not providing what they should be providing. The crisis is not just about a financial or debt crisis, it's a development crisis as well, because they are defaulting on development, on social development, they're defaulting on ensuring their children go to school, or that their people are able to go to hospitals and find medicine.
For Channel Africa News in Johannesburg, I'm Dimakatso Leshuru.
That takes us to exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African Time as we head over to the markets desk for the latest market indicators with Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tammy. Good afternoon. In your business news this hour, $1 is trading at 18.05 in South Africa. In Botswana is trading at 13.329. Namibia is trading at 18 Namibian dollars 05. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 23.72 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 579. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 135 birr 88. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,581 shilling. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,616. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,546 naira. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 50 Egyptian pound 58. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 93. In Algeria, it is trading at 129 dirham 75. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 10. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 911 kwanza 20, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,853 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,360 and platinum at $1,259 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $76.45 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And for the latest from the business of sport, a very good Friday afternoon to you, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, Tammy. We begin with football news in the Ghana WAFCON business of sport. Ghana's Black Queens are facing a major financial crisis that could derail their preparations for the 2025 Africa Women's Cup of Nations in Morocco. Ghana Football Association GFA has informed the team that it lacks the necessary funds to finance their pre-tournament activities. Attempts to secure financial support from the Ministry of Sports and Recreation have so far proven unsuccessful, leaving the team's preparations in jeopardy. The Black Queens recently secured a return to the Continental Tournament under Swiss tactician Nora Hopkel, who has since taken charge of Zambia's national women's team. Despite renewed optimism following qualification, the current logistical and financial setbacks threaten to stall the momentum. Typically, the GFA is responsible for travel, accommodation and allowances, while coaching salaries are sourced from FIFA, CAF or sponsors. However, the current funding gap has raised fresh concerns over the treatment and prioritization of women's football in Ghana. And former Super Eagles captain John Obi Mikel has once again spoken out against corruption in the country's sporting system and the debt he believes he is owed after the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. Obi Mikel lifted the lead on one of the most embarrassing chapters in Nigerian football, revealing how corruption and mismanagement nearly derailed the country's participation in the 2016 Rio Olympics. The former Chelsea disclosed that he personally paid for the national team's flight to Brazil and is still waiting to be reimbursed 9 years later.
Talk about the corruption where a budget has been signed by the government and somebody sitting on top of that money didn't release that money, and we are all sitting at the hotel about to fly to, I think it was, and everyone's thinking, how are we going to get there? There was no money to pay for flight. There was nothing to do. The players were worried. And for most of those players, it's their first time of going to a major tournament. So I thought, why not? I spoke to the coach, said, how can you find a plane? Looked for a plane, and I had to pay for it.
According to Mikel, the Nigerian Football Federation and Olympic Committee failed to coordinate the team's travel, leading to chaos at the airport from morning till night for a flight. He says there was infighting over who would pick up the tab. Mikel's decision to foot the bill spared the nation a global embarrassment and led to Nigeria clinching a bronze medal.
And we got there, we got there, and I thought, okay, now I'm gonna get reimbursed my money. Up till today, I still haven't. That's the thinking, that's the mentality. It's gonna be Mikel, and he can afford it. It's not that. It's the principle. You know what I mean? It's the respect, and that's what I told him. I was like, listen, guys, yes, I've done it, but it's the principle. You know what I mean? You need to reimburse me, but they still didn't do it. And for me, the joy that I take out of that is that we got there and those young players were able to get a medal.
Mikel says corruption nearly denied Nigeria an Olympic medal. He had previously hinted at the corruption during interviews, but his full account further exposes the dysfunction in sports governance. He says although they finished third, was the best achievement he is proud of than being able to foot the bill.
An Olympic medal. I know we finished third, but it's still a massive achievement. And for me to be able to see that for those young players go back home to their family, knowing that they got a medal from Olympic was more than the money.
Let's end with Nigeria's former UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman returned the ring and win with a dominant unanimous decision over Joaquin Buckley and took home between $750,000 and $1 million. UFC Atlanta delivered a well-rounded main card headlined by former welterweight champion Usman. After a long journey and series of struggles, Kamaru, who also is known as the Nigeria Nightmare, his estimated net worth stands around $3 to $4 million. His total career earnings till date from the fight stand at around $2 million. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa in Business. Africa in Business delivers key insights and real-time updates on Africa's growing markets with Tami Ngubeni. The African perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa. It is exactly 4:38 Central African Time. Now, Africa's future lies in inclusive growth, where youth opportunity, sustainable development, and community empowerment go hand in hand. Michelin's Vision Africa 2030 is built around this belief. It's a long-term framework designed to support job creation, skills development, and climate action, while also working hand in hand with African communities to build local capacity and resilience. We're joined this afternoon by Michelin Vice President for Africa, India and the Middle East, as well as the Michelin Managing Director for South Africa, Amaury Vadon. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Very good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
I must say, you must be a very busy man with so many territories under your belt. So maybe focusing on that, how are you responding directly to the continent's evolving needs, and what would you highlight as those needs?
So first, for sure, I am based out of South Africa and looking after all the sub-Saharan perimeter. But I have also a lot of teams that are on the ground that are helping me to have the clearest view and the clearest understanding to make the best decisions from Senegal, South Africa, and going back in Eastern Africa up until Kenya and Uganda and Ethiopia.
So you clearly have your pulse on the ground. What are the needs that have been highlighted as far as what does Africa need right now, and how are you as Michelin trying to meet those needs?
Yeah, what was evident for me when I arrived 18 months ago is that in fact the first element was to put a little bit more Michelin values into Africa, and realizing that Africa is all about energy. And you know, when it comes to Michelin, we are looking at things through three pillars: people pillar, profit pillar, and planet pillar. And when I'm talking about Africa, it's about energy, because when it comes to people, we are talking about the youngest population in the world. So it means a lot of energy and potential that we can help to grow for the continent, but also for the world. When it comes to profit, you have a speed and magnitude of growth that is quite unique in the world, also in the continent. And when it comes to planet, you have a lot of natural resources that are more and more booming in terms of usefulness for the planet, specifically for the electric transition for some areas like automotive. And here we have a responsibility as Michelin to play a very sustainable role to help the continent and these needs that are booming to make sure that all the innovations that we are bringing is helping the continent to be successful in this transition.
And you mentioned something really important, the fact that Africa has, the youngest youth population. What do you believe companies ought to be doing in order to act as a catalyst for upskilling and empowering Africa's youth that they are skills ready for tomorrow?
Yeah. Acknowledging this youth and this energy, it was the starting point for me to think with all the teams of Michelin of the vision of Africa. Why we did a vision of Africa is it was a testimony to say that if we want to be serious as a company like Michelin, existing for more than 130 years, in one of the most dynamic continents, you cannot be transactional with Africa. You need to find a way to be sustainable. And this vision was an embodiment of a sustainable path and a designed way that we want to be in Africa. And it starts with the people. So here, when we look at the people, we look first at our internal teams, how to bring them all the competencies, the training elements that they can have to grow in the company, but also being fully equipped if they have also opportunities outside the company. And then when it comes to the youth of the continent, is to find opportunities to support communities, specific education plans, investing in some partnerships that we have with some schools to help some of the trainees to integrate and to have a first experience of the active world of the company inside Michelin, etc., etc. So we have a lot of programs where we want to fully support the youth inside the company, but also outside, to make sure that we are fully equipped with the right people and the right competencies for the future of the continent.
You mentioned something quite interesting. You said, with Africa, you cannot be transactional, but the projects that you undertake must be sustainable. Talk to us about that. How do you balance profit with people?
Yes, here in fact you realize that when it comes to... Okay, so maybe just to centralize a little bit more on the Michelin values. Michelin, again, as I mentioned, has been existing for more than 130 years, and what, according to me, but according also to many people, what is making Michelin unique in its approach is that the people is really at the center. It's really a people-centric company, investing a lot in its people, because convinced by if people are at the right level, happy also to be part of a company, proud to be part of a whole project, the element of profit will just be a consequence, positive consequence of it, and not the contrary. So these investments have always been there for many years, and we are doing the exact same thing in Africa. We are always saying for, by, and with the people. And one element that is important when it comes to salaries, for example, Michelin has implemented a minimum wage worldwide, meaning that wherever you are working for Michelin, whoever you are in the company, you are assured to be paid at a minimum wage to have a decent life with a family of 2 parents and 2 children. And so that is the kind of initiative that Michelin is doing to make sure that people are engaged, happy, proud, and so in a full capacity to deliver the profit plan that we have.
And as you're saying, it has to be something that's embedded within the company values, and it has to then reflect itself not only with the various stakeholders, your final consumers, but also within the company itself, the people who work with you and for you. We thank you so much, Omari Vadon, for your time this afternoon as we focus on Michelin's Vision Africa 2030. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That's Omari Vadon. He is the Vice President for Africa, India and the Middle East for Michelin, as well as the Managing Director for South Africa. They're saying that profits are a consequence of putting people first. That, he says, is part of their philosophy. It's gone exactly 4:47 Central African Time. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation, Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 4:47 Central African Time. The National African Federation for the Building Industry, NAFBI, hosted a two-day conference that focused on issues such as occupational health and safety challenges among SMMEs and contractors, technological advancements, and developments of energy storage solutions towards a sustainable energy future. The theme of this year's conference was Stronger Together: Global Networks Driving Skills and Job Creation in Infrastructure. For more on this, we joined on the line by Mr. Aubrey Chalata, who's president of the National African Federation for the Building Industry, NAFBI. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Chalata. Good to be talking to you once again. And dare I say, what a fabulous and inspirational 2 days of this conference that was held in Midrand, South Africa. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, and greetings to you and to your listeners, Tami. Indeed, it was a great 2 days full of incisive engagement, very exciting prospects for the future, and strengthening of partnerships. And as you say, we're fostering a culture of working together, stronger together, and developing skills and growing the economy, not only of South Africa, but focusing on the economies of the African continent as a whole.
So one of the key themes this year, and there was a really strong focus on this, was the responsibility that the built environment sector has in creating jobs. And there are some sizable commitments that NAFBI has made in order to do this. Could you take us through that?
No, thank you very much. There are a few key focus areas and key resolutions and action plans that the conference adopted after extensive deliberations. Number one, we have committed that in the next 3 years, and that 3 years started yesterday, we will be putting up 45,000 jobs or creating 45,000 jobs, particularly for youth in the South African economy. The 15,000 jobs each year will be created specifically in the area of infrastructure maintenance, infrastructure development, renewable energy space, home maintenance, home building, and particularly repairing and fixing infrastructure in municipalities, as well as the renewable energy space, particularly in the area of the province of the Northern Cape. These jobs will be created specifically in partnership with the majority of state-owned enterprises, as well as international companies that are working in the renewable energy space in the Republic of South Africa. That is one commitment, to create those jobs. I must emphasize that this is strengthened by a partnership between business and government, particularly the Department of Higher Education and Training, which focuses on artisan development. We are very focused that artisans and engineers and contractors that are trained, as well as technology experts that are trained in our TVET colleges, should find work within the infrastructure space and within the built environment. That's number one. Number two, we focused very strongly on the issue of safety on our construction sites. You are aware that the country has experienced quite a number of fatal incidents on various construction sites. Many of these, as Professor Smallwood of the Nelson Mandela University puts it, are as a result of management failure to put in place appropriate systems and protocols for safety. But this is felt more by small and medium enterprises who may not have sufficient resources and capabilities to put in place the necessary precautions and measures to ensure that the workers who work on their sites are safe. And as we put it at the conference, one death is one too many, and we want to make sure that we have zero tolerance on occurrences of these kind of accidents on our construction sites. So conference resolved that we will be putting a strong emphasis on high skills for particularly safety officers, and particularly on our roads, what we call traffic safety officers for contractors who work on our roads, particularly with the South African National Roads Agency Limited.
Mr. Chalata, I'd like to, unfortunately, in the interest of time, in which we just have 1 minute left, but I'm really interested in finding out the global networks part of your theme this year, as well as the footprint that you have on the African continent and globally. Talk to us about that relationship and how different countries can leverage off each other's strengths and intellectual property, and how you as NAFBI are doing that.
No, thank you very much. We are part of the BRICS Business Council. Last year we were in Russia, this year we are in Brazil. And one of the resolutions we've agreed on, particularly within the BRICS group of nations, is that we need to ensure that we benefit from each other. In other words, we export products to one country, but that country is able to manufacture components of its own products in the country that will be exporting those products from. So we have this mutual relationship between nations, particularly in the African continent. Remember, we have the African Free Trade Agreement, and we wanted to reinforce that African states need to do business amongst each other. Secondly, we are part of the B20, and South Africa, as you are aware, is the chairman of the B20 this year. We've launched the B20 alongside the G20, and business is united in ensuring that those member businesses within the 20 member states of the B20 are able to work together. NAFBI is playing an active role in this space together with other businesses, particularly in the infrastructure and financing of infrastructure, together with our finance institutions and development finance institutions.
Mr. Aubrey Chalata, we thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on 2 days of a successful conference, and really looking forward to seeing what those 45,000 jobs over the next 3 years will be looking like. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Tammy.
Thank you. That's Mr. Aubrey Chalata. He's president of the National African Federation for the Building Industry, NAFBA.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
We turn our focus now to our weekly business roundup with Victor Kgomoeswana, author of Africa is Open for Business and Africa Bounces Back. Victor is also the Executive Director for Marketing and Communication at the University of Limpopo. A very good afternoon to you, Victor. Great to be chatting once again.
Good chatting to you, Tani. Good afternoon.
Perhaps let's start off first with the moves that Russia is making as far as the African continent is concerned. Two major stories, one involving Burkina Faso and the other Mali.
It's not surprising. If you remember, Mali and Burkina Faso, alongside Niger, are the three Sahel states that broke away from the Economic Community of West African States. They are both ruled by, all three of them, in fact, are ruled by soldiers or military rulers after the coup in the three respective countries. But one thing that has been happening also has been the aggression or the belligerence of the United States and some of the Western countries in how they deal with Africa, that they treat Africa with disdain, and they opening the room for China, Brazil, India, Russia, and the likes, because when you can't build alliances with France or NATO countries or North American countries, you're going to have to look east, and this is what is seemingly happening. In Burkina Faso, in Mali rather, it's an energy project. Am I right?
It's the gold refinery.
Gold refinery.
Yes, in Mali. Yes.
Refinery. Because both of them are producers of gold, Burkina Faso and and Mali. It's Niger that's more uranium and what's that. But all three countries, Tammy, had French companies operating there. So when they threw France out of the country, they opened room for a whole lot of other things. America could have taken the place because they are really advanced in the oil refinery and the renewable energy space. But because of the policies of Donald Trump, the tariff wars and everything, I think he's got a handful with the Ukraine, Russia, Israeli, Gaza situation. So that's where Russia comes in investing in this. It's not only that, it's a lot more investments that Russia is making on the African continent.
Certainly, we're seeing headways there with Burkina Faso signing that final document for the electronuclear program with Russia, and Russia then backing the gold refinery in Mali. So that building begins in Mali. And we see the Total Energy COO expecting to restart the Mozambique LNG project soon.
Yeah, Patrick, he was being asked at a summit. And if you remember, since 2021, not only was COVID a disruptor, Tammy, we talked about in northern Mozambique, the Cabo Delgado crisis, the insurgency, Al-Shabaab aligned or Al-Qaeda aligned attacks, and they made it very difficult for companies to operate. There was a time when the French president, Emmanuel Macron, came to South Africa to try and lobby the SADC countries to raise the kind of security there. That didn't quite work. That's why Rwanda, in the end, ended up getting the business to guard the field there. And it's what you are having. Crystal Ventures, which is the business wing of the Rwanda Patriotic Front, guarding some of the fields there, and the relationship with Rwanda and France improving to the point that they could be part of the security. And that's why Total Energies, which is heavily invested in that part of the world, is able to say they should resume this summer. Of course, when they say this summer, to us, they mean this winter. So probably in the next 2 to 3 months, they should be able to resume the work there.
And looks like fresh hope springing out of Zimbabwe with regional and niche international financial institutions re-engaging with local banks to re-establish correspondent banking relationships with the country.
Exactly. Correspondent banks are those banks that make your trade, international trade, very easy. The likes of Citibank, the likes of Standard Chartered, JP Morgan. These are banks that can make you able to trade with countries in which you ordinarily wouldn't be able to access banking, and vice versa. So Zimbabwe had been marginalized during President Trump and before. There were all kinds of sanctions that were imposed against the country, that making it difficult for companies that were domiciled in America or allies of America to operate. And they were withdrawing one by one, but they are showing an interest all of a sudden returning because they are seeing the investment that's happening. They are seeing maybe the stability of the ZiG. We keep talking about it, that people are ridiculing it, but it's at least bringing some kind of foreign reserves, which means when you operate a bank, you can offer more guarantees with more comfort.
It certainly must be a sign of relief for Zimbabwe as far as that's concerned. Victor Khumswana, thank you once again for our weekly business roundup.
It's been a pleasure.
Have a great weekend ahead. That's Victor Khumswana, author of Africa is Open for Business, and Africa bounces back. Some really positive news really coming out of the continent for today. Well, that's how we come to the end of Africa in Business for this week. From myself, Tami Ngubeni, and the team, you have yourself a splendid evening further and a great weekend ahead as we hand the reins over now to the French desk with Vue d'Afrique avec Joël. Au revoir.
Vue d'Afrique, un magazine des actualités en français sur Channel Africa. Rendez-vous du lundi au vendredi avec Joël Mouteba sur